In the heart of the Middle East, a region steeped in history and complex geopolitics, lies a rivalry that has shaped the landscape for decades. Few rivalries are as consequential, as deeply entrenched, and as potentially explosive as that between Israel and Iran. This is not merely a disagreement over borders or resources, it's a clash of ideologies, ambitions, and historical narratives. These nations, geographically separated by over 1,000 miles of land and sea, might seem distant, but they are locked in a perpetual shadow war, a conflict fought on multiple fronts, often unseen but always felt. This war is fought through proxies, armed groups and militant organizations that serve as extensions of their power. It's waged through sophisticated cyber attacks, targeting critical infrastructure and sensitive data. And it unfolds through clandestine covert operations carried out in the shadows by intelligence agencies and special forces. Israel, a small but technologically advanced democratic state, a key ally of the West, sees Iran's relentless pursuit of nuclear ambitions and its unwavering support for groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine as direct and existential threats to its very survival. Iran, since its transformative 1979 revolution, which ushered in a new era of religious and political leadership, views Israel as an illegitimate outpost of Western power in the Middle East, a relic of colonialism, and seeks to establish regional dominance and project its influence through its network, known as the Axis of Resistance. This volatile and deeply entrenched standoff, fueled by fundamentally clashing worldviews, historical grievances, and profound mutual distrust, means that even a seemingly minor incident, a miscalculation or a spark of aggression, could rapidly spiral into a full-blown conflict with far-reaching and potentially devastating global consequences. To truly understand the complexities of the modern Middle East, we need to look back. Before 1979, a very different dynamic existed between two nations now considered staunch enemies. Israel and Iran were surprisingly unlikely allies. This alliance, though perhaps counterintuitive to contemporary observers, was forged in the crucible of shared strategic interests. They were sharing intelligence, engaging in robust trade, and united by a common enemy: the rising tide of Arab nationalism that threatened both their regional ambitions and internal stability. This cooperation extended to various sectors, fostering a relationship built on mutual benefit and a pragmatic assessment of the geopolitical landscape. However, the Iranian Revolution in 1979 changed everything, fundamentally altering the power dynamics of the Middle East and setting the stage for decades of conflict. The revolution led to the overthrow of the Shah, a key ally of the West and Israel, replacing his government with a radical Islamist regime that vehemently denounced Israel and swiftly cut all diplomatic and economic ties. In the aftermath, Iran began actively supporting and funding various militant groups, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon, as a means of projecting its influence and challenging its perceived enemies. This support for non-state actors transformed the relationship between Iran and Israel into one of open hostility, characterized by mutual distrust and escalating tensions. This hostility quickly manifested in proxy warfare, with both nations vying for influence and dominance through their respective allies and proxies across the region. This proxy conflict extended beyond the Middle East, with attacks on Israeli and Jewish targets worldwide becoming a grim feature of the ongoing struggle. These attacks included the devastating 1994 EMEA bombing in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which targeted a Jewish community center and remains a stark reminder of the global reach of this conflict. As the 21st century dawned, the conflict intensified further, primarily over Iran's controversial nuclear program, which Israel views as an existential threat. In response, Israel has reportedly conducted a series of covert operations, including sabotage and assassinations of key Iranian nuclear scientists, aimed at hindering the program's progress. Simultaneously, Iran has been actively building up its network of proxies in countries like Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, further expanding its regional influence and creating a strategic challenge for Israel. The Syrian civil war in particular has become a new and dangerous front in this ongoing conflict, with both Iran and Israel deeply involved in supporting opposing sides. Israel has repeatedly conducted airstrikes on Iranian targets within Syria, seeking to prevent the transfer of advanced weapons to Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed groups. Thus, decades of quiet cooperation have tragically given way to a relentless and multifaceted shadow war, fought through proxies, covert operations, and cyber warfare. This shadow war now profoundly shapes the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, fueling regional tensions and contributing to the ongoing instability that plagues the region. The Israel-Iran conflict matters globally because of energy and security. The Persian Gulf is vital for oil and gas. Any war could disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, sending shockwaves through the world economy. Iran's nuclear ambitions risk sparking a regional arms race while its proxy network fuels instability from Lebanon to Yemen. The rivalry draws in world powers. The US backs Israel, while Russia and China support Iran. A direct clash could escalate into a global crisis with major powers forced to take sides. This is not just a regional dispute, it's a potential trigger for worldwide instability. A direct Israel-Iran war would quickly engulf the region. Iran's proxies, especially Hezbollah, would attack Israel, opening multiple fronts and devastating Lebanon. Fighting would spread to Syria and Iraq, targeting US forces and destabilizing already fragile states. Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, within range of Iranian missiles, would face retaliation if seen supporting Israel or the US. The US would be pressured to intervene, risking a wider war with unpredictable consequences. Even attempts to stay out would make US bases targets, raising the risk of global escalation. The stakes, a regional war spiraling into a global crisis. To truly understand the complex dynamics between Israel and Iran, it's crucial to consider their deeply contrasting perspectives. Israelis, looking at the region, see Iran as an existential threat, a nation actively working to undermine their security and stability. They feel encircled by hostile proxies, groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, which they believe are funded, trained, and equipped by Iran to carry out attacks against them. This perceived encirclement fuels a sense of vulnerability and the need for constant vigilance. Adding to this fear is the Iranian nuclear program, which Israelis view as an imminent and unacceptable danger. The prospect of a nuclear-armed Iran is seen as a direct threat to Israel's very existence, a red line that cannot be crossed. Given this perceived threat landscape, many in Israel believe that preemptive action is not only justifiable but also necessary. They argue that waiting for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon would be too late, and that decisive action is needed to prevent such a scenario. This preemptive approach is aimed squarely at preventing Iran from gaining nuclear capability, a goal that Israel sees as vital to its national security. Furthermore, Israel is concerned about Iran's support for militant groups in the region, viewing it as a destabilizing force that must be countered, or arming its allies. Iran, meanwhile, vehemently rejects these accusations and sees itself as a victim, a nation unfairly targeted by Western powers and their allies in the region. They perceive themselves as being subjected to constant pressure and aggression from Western and Israeli forces, facing economic sanctions and military threats. This perspective is rooted in a history of foreign intervention in Iranian affairs, recalling past interventions and ongoing threats that have shaped their worldview. From Tehran's perspective, Israel is viewed as a hostile, nuclear-armed occupier of Palestinian lands, a state that poses a direct threat to regional stability and Iranian interests. Furthermore, Iran sees Israel as a key strategic asset and a base for American power in the Middle East, a tool used to project Western influence and undermine Iranian sovereignty. Therefore, Iran frames its actions, including its nuclear program and its support for regional proxies, as fundamentally defensive, a means of protecting itself from external threats. These actions are presented as a necessary strategy, meant to deter potential attacks and safeguard its sovereignty in a hostile regional environment. In essence, both sides firmly believe they're acting defensively, protecting their own interests and ensuring their survival in a volatile region. This mutual perception of self-defense, however, fuels a dangerous cycle of mistrust and escalation, making it increasingly difficult to find common ground. Therefore, understanding these fundamentally different perspectives is absolutely key to grasping the immense challenges and complexities involved in finding a peaceful resolution and why compromise remains such a difficult, elusive goal. Preventing war requires urgent diplomacy. Reviving a nuclear deal with strict verification could ease Israeli fears and slow Iran's nuclear progress. Establishing direct communication channels would help prevent accidental escalation, especially in hotspots like Syria. Economic incentives and regional dialogue could encourage moderation and build trust. The world must consistently condemn actions that escalate tensions, holding both sides accountable. Only a balanced, sustained international effort can pull Israel and Iran back from the brink. The Israel-Iran rivalry is one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints, with consequences far beyond the region. Both nations are locked in a cycle of fear and reaction, each seeing the other as the aggressor. The risk of escalation is ever present, but diplomacy, communication, and regional cooperation offer a path away from disaster. Global powers have a responsibility to de-escalate, not inflame this conflict. The challenge is immense, but the cost of failure would be catastrophic for the Middle East and the world. Peace in this region is not just a local issue, it's a global necessity.